And then how do you go about like the market knowledge? Like, I mean, like in Ventura County, like I can tell you what a house is worth without even running comps sometimes. Like whenever you're going into a different market, like how do you get to know the marketplace? Because like, I mean, if I go to Texas, I'm going to see 100-unit apartment for like maybe like 3 million or something like that. I'm automatically going to think, man, that's a steal, like I'm used to California price per doors. So what do you do to just get to know the market?
So it is just like studying the market. We use CoStar for commercial assets, and that gives us a good grasp on things, as well as talk to local lenders, local brokers, because we source most of our deals off market. But I'll still reach out to a broker and be like, hey, what do you think about this deal? Once I have it contracted, and be like, give an idea of what we can do and what the play is in that area, if there's room to add value. Room to add rent, up the rents, and it's just a lot of research and comping and underwriting of the deals, which I like to do. I'm a finance major from UCF, and I like the underwriting. I like the numbers. I like deal structuring, financing. So I have a little love for that.
Let me ask you a question. How do you determine, like, you find the deal? How do you determine, like, whether you're gonna wholesale this deal? How do you determine if you're gonna flip it? How do you determine if you're going to keep it? Like, what are some of the factors that you kind of look like? So take me like, hey, look, a deal comes across your desk. How do you determine that? Hi, everybody. It's Jose Luis Morales. Welcome back to the Morales Group Show. This is episode number 42. We've got a very special guest. His name is Alex Quezada. He works with cash offers and Vault Ventures. He is an investor. Works in multiple markets. He'll be educating us today on some exit strategies. When you enter into a deal, how do you exit out of a deal? Creative financing. He's going to be talking to us as well too as about pros and cons of different asset classes. So welcome to the show, Alex. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. I'm really glad that you're on. So let's just start off like talking about like how did you get into? How long have you been in real estate investing, and how did you get into it?
I first started investing when I heard Ronald Grand radio ad in like 2011, and went to a seminar, and then bought a bunch of other seminars, and started to try to get in on my own, and started doing some deals on my own while I had a job selling timeshare. Knew I had to like make a full transition, so quit my job and then just went in full steam ahead. I actually ended up working for somebody else for a couple of years, and then for 3 years, and then went off on did my own thing.
That's awesome. So you got some experience by working with somebody else, and then basically once you had enough experience, basically transition to your own thing.
Yeah, just doing strictly wholesale, and pretty much running his wholesale business is what I was doing, and that's what I was learning prior to starting with him. I did a couple of deals, but I was missing something, which is really like estimating repairs, and I probably could have left after a month, but like, I'm a pretty loyal person, and I, stuck with him for 3 years, and then it was just time for me to transition and do my own thing.
That's awesome, bro. And for those people that don't know what wholesaling is, what is wholesaling?
You're essentially signing contracts, or you're selling contracts, not houses. So you're putting a property under contract, and you're selling that contract. So say I put a house under contract for $100,000. I turn around and find a landlord or a rehabber who might want to buy that house for $110,000. And then I make that $10,000 difference. And you could do the same thing with cars. I actually did that with cars, buying cars at the auction and selling cars. You can do it with anything, pretty much.
That's awesome, man. Cool, man. So it's just basically a strategy where somebody can not have to take ownership of the property and basically sell it before you essentially close on it, and still be able to make a profit on it.
100%. And it doesn't require a lot of money. You might have to put all it really requires is marketing money to find a good deal, or not even really. You can just go knock doors and talk to people and find potential sellers that way who might be motivated to sell.
So essentially the only thing is basically it's a good way to get started in real estate as long as you can get good at finding good deals. Cool, man. And then what does your current business look like now? Do you still wholesale? Do you flip properties? Do you hold any for buy and hold? What does that look like now?
So right now I have a wholesale operation. We do a 7 figures wholesale business. I think this year so far, we've contracted over 450 properties.
Boom.
We're in 7 different markets and growing into others as well. So we have a wholesale operation now that I'm now at a point where I'm not fully involved in that on the day-to-day. And so my brother heads up my sales office, and we have acquisition agents and disposition agents, transaction coordinators, kind of run the whole process so I can focus more on commercial and raising money, finding commercial deals, analyzing commercial deals, managing those, and raising more capital.
That's awesome, bro. So it wasn't always like that. I mean, like the Alex that we see today wasn't like basically like day one. So take me back like to like when the operations actually started, man. Like whenever you went on your own, like what did that look like? Like was it just you and a computer and a telephone, or what did that look like?
So it was me and my brother in our house that we lived at, and it was just me and him, pretty much doing 3 deals a month, doing a little bit of marketing, and doing MLS deals, doing wholesaling. So finding deals, reselling them to other investors. And we did that for a whole year and thought we were doing good. 3 deals a month, just us out of our house.
Money.
It's good. You know, good money, hanging out, traveling, doing things, enjoying life. But then I went to an event and there was kids 5 years, 6 years younger than me, and everybody else in the room too, that was doing 20, 30 deals a month. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I thought I was doing good. I'm doing terrible. Like, I got to do what these people do. So I talked to a lot of those folks, and they're like, well, what are you spending on marketing? I'm like, $3,000 to $5,000 a month. They're like, try adding a 0 to that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try that. So I got an Amex card, and I increased my limit, put roughly 30 grand on a card. And the next month, 45 days, I closed $110,000.
Boom.
And yeah. And then mistakenly for me, the next month I only put like 15 grand in marketing and 20 grand in marketing. And we had about 50 to 70, $80,000 months, had one more $100,000 month in that year. And then from there, so that year we went from 36 deals to after that event doing 88 deals, and then went to another event to learn about scaling up, because still we weren't consistently doing.
Yep, it's going live right now. Cool, man. So we're back on. Yeah, so you were telling us about how it you went to another event, and then you kind of dropped the marketing budget and increased a little bit.
Yep. So I went to another event, and I always heard about virtual wholesaling, which is essentially doing it in other markets. And we were kind of already doing that, because obviously when a seller lives in Washington State, they're selling a house in Florida, you're buying it virtually from them. So the concept was pretty easy to understand. And so we started doing virtual wholesaling and open up different markets. And that was something else that allowed us to scale again and pretty much double our business as well. And we went from doing 88 deals to like 170 something. So every year I've gotten mentors or gotten coaching or done something to scale my business and grow and grow and grow.
You know what's funny, Alex? That's one of the things that I appreciate about you, man. Like, you've invested money in education, and essentially that has allowed you to scale. So a lot of people look at it like as a cost, but you're looking at it from like as an investment. So essentially, obviously, I mean, you've got a great return on it. So before the virtual wholesaling, were you going to the properties physically before making an offer and before buying them up? And was that process slowing you down? And how much of a game changer was that whenever you started virtually doing it versus actually physically going there?
So I would say the majority of the houses I was going to on appointments, I probably put like 30,000 plus miles on my car every single year for several years. It's terrible. But there were deals that we would close over the phone because the seller's ready to go, and we had DocuSign. It wasn't a foreign concept. But now, even if a house is 5-10 minutes away, we'll lock it up over the phone. It just saves time, especially if you're a 1 or 2 man team. You can only talk to 4 or 5 appointments in a whole day, driving all over town, where my people here talk to 20, 30, 40 people a day, quality conversations to get at least, a deal a day or a couple deals a day, each individual agent.
You know, it's funny. The same thing happened to me, Alex. So whenever I got into the business, because I sell real estate, I witnessed some agents that were selling 100, 150, and 200 homes. And after I saw that, like my mind completely changed. I just basically said, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And it sounds like it's the same thing. When you were doing 3 deals a month, you were like, man, I'm doing pretty well. But then you got exposed to somebody doing a lot more deals. And this might be good exposure for somebody that's doing 3 deals a month and now see somebody like you doing 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 deals. And it might just be that exposure that people need to see, man. So what I wanted to talk to you about is like, what does your real estate portfolio look like now? Because a lot of people are very transactional. What I mean by that is that they run 7 business companies, but a lot of the time they don't actually keep any of the real estate as a whole. And essentially what I see in that is they're making a lot of money, but they don't really have anything to show for it. I mean, they've been wholesaling, they've been flipping, they've been doing a lot of things. 5, 10 years down the line, they don't have anything to show for it. One of the things that I appreciated about you was that I think you've got the short-term game, but you also have the long-term game. What I mean by that is that you're also planning for like, hey, look, let's build some wealth. So what does your current real estate portfolio look like now?
For sure. And that's kind of like my strategy is, I say like I'm paper rich. Like I got a lot of assets and like every time I have money, I'm buying an asset. I'm buying more properties and putting that money to use and to work. So right now I own several single family residential houses, condos, triplexes, townhomes, things like that. That's like around 40 plus or so. And then own a self-storage facility, 2 mobile home parks, and 3 apartment buildings, all with partners. And then we have a mobile home park under contract to close in December, another self-storage deal to close in December as well. And then we just got an accepted verbal offer on a another self-storage. So we're continuing to grow our business and continue to invest. I talked to a lot of people who have been doing this before me, who wholesale and make a ton of money. And they're like, man, I never held properties. And which is, I think it's a big mistake. There's always a good time to buy, especially if you can do the creative financing. Every rental property I have is pretty much a creative deal.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's the same thing with me. Like in real estate, man, not a lot of people hold property. And I basically saw my dad who held a lot of property. And I'm like, man, this is where it's at. I don't need more money to be taxed upon. We have enough income coming in. We just need to build that long-term wealth. So let me ask you this. You own mobile home parks. You own self-storage facilities. You own multi-unit. You own single-family residences. What is your favorite asset class and why? Like out of all the different asset classes, which one is your favorite and why? And what is your vision? So what's your favorite asset class out of all of them and why?
Yeah, so self-storage is we just got into self-storage this year. I've done education for it prior. I just never fully invested my time and effort to do it fully. It's my favorite because it's the least management intensive, and there's a lot of things you can automate the business with. Like our place in South Florida is completely automated. We have a part-time on-call manager, but the gate's automated. People can buy online, can do everything. Like our guy actually got COVID. He hasn't been there for 2 weeks, and it's running. People are paying. People can go in and out, lock up units. So it's great, the automation aspect of it. Obviously, if it's a much bigger facility, you need a full-time guy there. But for this one, it just runs on autopilot, and there was a lot of added value for us. So that one's been great, and similar to the one that we're closing in December. It's kind of very similar strategies there. So that's my favorite asset class so far. But the other, they're all pretty good. They all got their perks.
Yeah. You mind digging in as to how you found that storage facility? And like, what was like the source, and maybe like a lesson that you learned from purchasing your first storage facility?
Yeah. So it's for that one. What we did, we just did similar marketing as the wholesaling, for houses. We pull a list, we mail the list, we call the list, and just have conversations. And it's really just time and circumstance, doing it consistently, marketing consistently to find those deals. And, the guy told us, like, I never checked my mailbox. Today I checked my mailbox, and that morning I decided I'm going to sell my facility. And he's like, and I got your letter.
Wow.
It's just meant to be. And I was like, I love those. Like, that's happened to me many times, those types of things. So it was just the right time and in the right place. And it was great. And that one, we actually bought it with creative financing as well. So we got it in at a good price, good terms, and made a lot of sense for us. And it was just a slam dunk, really.
That's awesome. Now, I think the nugget there is consistency, right? Like, did you hit this list multiple times, or was it just like, because a lot of people like might go through the list and say, I didn't get anything out of it, I'm done with it. Do you recycle these lists? Meaning, like, if you pull a list of all the storage facility owners, do you go back to it, and how do you go about, like, essentially targeting that list? Like how do you go about doing that?
So we initially started like hitting the list every other month, and then we're like, my partners and I were like, well, let's do more. So we pulled another state, a couple different states, different areas, but there's only so many self-storage facilities. Yeah. So we just like, well, let's just hit them every month, and you just got to constantly do the same thing. There's only so much inventory. Even the same with single family houses. People who own property that don't live in them, that's been there for 5 years plus. There's only so many of those people, and we're just going to constantly call those people and constantly
stay in touch with them,
reach out to them, whether they want us to or not, or this month they said no, or, they said, they're not interested in selling. It's all time and circumstances. So things change, and it's just hitting them at the right time. So if you're in front of their face, constantly talking to them and keeping a connection with them, building rapport, especially in commercial, it's all about rapport, especially in the long game and follow up. So if you can establish those connections, you'll be the first person they think of. But if you miss 2 weeks or 2 months, 3 months and don't contact them, they might sell it, and you'll be like, oh, I talked to this person for 6 months straight, and then you stop.
Nothing.
That's when they're going to sell it.
So essentially you found, you knew what you wanted, so you just basically kept going back to that list and basically doing it that way.
For sure, yeah. And we still hitting the same list. And we haven't even took the people off that we bought it from. Like, they're probably still getting mail from us.
That's awesome, man. Good for you, man. Cool. Now, what about like the mobile home parks and like the multi-unit?
There you go.
Yeah. So what about like mobile home parks and multi-unit? Like, what would you say the benefit of a mobile home park is, and maybe like a negative, and vice versa, as in regards to a multi-unit, and maybe like a multi-unit. Like, what would you say the pros of those are?
So the pros of a mobile home park is it's affordable housing, and so it's the cheapest place for someone to live, and it's always going to be a need. There's affordable housing. There's a lack of affordable housing, and many people in the industry feel that the lot rent rates was what you want. You want to just own the dirt, have the people own their trailers, and just get paid for literally for them to park their trailer there. So those rates on average are like $250 to $300, and they're only going to go up. So, and when they do go up, your value of your parks is going to rise tremendously. So we plan to just hold ours, long term, and they're cash flow machines. And then if you own it where they own just the dirt, the management is not that intensive either. So you don't have a lot of management costs. For apartments, obviously apartments are more management intensive. Yeah. Talking to a lot of tenants and toilets. With the mobile home parks, you don't want to own the home, so they're responsible for their toilets. An apartment is very management intensive, but you can also, that allows you to add tremendous value and force appreciation quicker. But right now we're kind of waiting on apartments until this COVID thing kind of fades away, and eviction moratoriums and all that. But but mobile home parks and self-storage is like my go-to right now.
I would imagine like that the mobile home parks, I mean, if it's not like a regular tenant as well too, because in an apartment complex, they have no ownership they have not really a vested interest as much as a mobile home park, because in a mobile home park they own the home, and to move it would be a big expense. So essentially, they're more likely, and it almost seems like they're a little bit more recession proof as well too. But let me ask you this, Alex. What is the key? I mean, you're in a different marketplace. One of my things is all of my portfolios in Southern California, man. I own everything in Ventura County, and part of the reason I've done that is I've never invested out of state, and I've always heard that it's hard because you're physically not there, and it's easier for somebody to take advantage of you. What would you say is the key to you being in multiple states and owning multiple properties in multiple different locations, and still be able to have like a good life, without having to worry about if maybe somebody's taking advantage of you or those sorts of things?
Yeah, so it does require, having some trust or vetting the right people, vetting contractors and vetting property managers. And, we've obviously gone up to those parks and those self-storage facilities and units and looked at them and toured them and met contractors there. My business partner moved up to one of our parks for a couple months to, because we had so much renovation we had to do. We really didn't have somebody to trust to manage all the projects. So sometimes you got to do those types of things to take control and make sure you don't get burned. But I have several rehabs going on in different areas in Pensacola and Pittsburgh and different areas where I found the right people and they're trustworthy. They communicate well. They send us pictures and photos of what's going on those projects on the regular, and it allows us to build trust, and they have gained our trust, and now we can do more in those areas and scale our businesses in those areas.
And then how do you go about like the market knowledge? Like, I mean, like in Ventura County, like I can tell you what a house is worth without even running comps sometimes. Like whenever you're going into a different market, like how do you get to know the marketplace? Because like, I mean, if I go to Texas, I'm going to see a 100-unit apartment for like maybe like 3 million or something like that. I'm automatically going to think, man, that's a steal, like I'm used to California price per door. So what do you do to just get to know the market?
So it is just like studying the market. We use CoStar for commercial assets, and that gives us a good grasp on things, as well as talk to local lenders, local brokers, because we source most of our deals off market. But I'll still reach out to a broker and be like, hey, what do you think about this deal? Once I have it contracted, and be like, give an idea of what we can do and what the play is in that area, if there's room to add value, room to add rent, up the rents, and it's just a lot of research and comping and underwriting of the deals, which I like to do. I'm a finance major from UCF, and I like the underwriting. I like the numbers. I like deal structuring, financing. So I have a little love for that.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this. A lot of people don't ask this, but tell me about a time where maybe you thought you were getting a good deal and maybe like something got missed and it wasn't really a good deal, or maybe something didn't go as planned. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I'm stuck in one of those right now. I have a property in DeLand, Florida, and it's just a nightmare. Had foundation issues. We knew there was foundation issues, and got a huge reduction. I was like, oh, that's plenty, and fixed the issues, but then like the jack slipped and messed up like the roof, and we had to redo things, and then things weren't done as they said they were going to be done, and then the contractor bailed, and another contractor bailed. So it's been a nightmare, but we just got to get through it, take the loss, or we're actually probably just going to refinance it and rent it out. But like it happens, but that's why you got to have a pipeline going and continue to do other deals. Luckily, nothing like that has happened in commercial. Yeah. Obviously, those are bigger mistakes you can't afford to make. But we will go through that one and move on and look past it and continue to rise on up.
Let me ask you a question. How do you determine, like, you find a deal? how do you determine like whether you're gonna wholesale this deal? How do you determine if you're gonna flip it? How do you determine if you're gonna keep it? Like, what are some of the factors that you kind of look like? So take me like, hey, look, a deal comes across your desk. How do you determine that?
So my first inclination is to wholesale everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there have been times where sometimes I get approached with properties, and then the seller's really tight, and they know wholesaling and whatnot. And we have one that we're about to close at the end of this month. The guy is a sophisticated seller. He's like, I'm not going to allow you to wholesale it. I know all the tricks, land trust, selling your LLC, all this stuff. Like, I want to know you're the buyer. So I'm like, okay, we'll buy it and rehab it. It's in a great area in Colonial Town in Orlando. So we're going to buy it. We're going to rehab it. A lot of times also, if it's a quick and easy rehab, we can do those. If we're like, hey, we got a great number, paint, carpet, we can resell it. We'll do those types of rehabs. And then also when I have a lot of times when people approach me that I know, or some of my good buyers I know, they're like, hey, let's partner on this deal. Then we'll do that as well. And then with the rentals, I only buy rentals if I can buy them with owner financing or subject to. So if I could get into the properties cheap, then those are the ones that I tend to buy and hold myself.
And the main objective behind that is that you don't have a lot of equity tied into the deal, or you're not depleting a lot of your capital, because I'm imagining that you like the capital to be able to run your business or to be able to do more with that money versus having it tied up in a single in a property, essentially, in other words.
Yep. Yeah, it allows you, instead of like buying one rental for $100,000, I can buy 5 or 10 with that same amount of money. And my cash on cash return on those are typically 20%, if not infinity, because I have no money in the deal.
Very little money into the property. Cool, man. Do you have any rule of thumbs as to like when you flip it versus wholesale it? Like, you're like a certain profit margin like that. Like, I know that obviously, like if it's a scenario where the owner doesn't want you to wholesale it, you might buy it. But are there any rule of thumbs as it relates to that?
So if we can make 3 times as much on the rehab than wholesale, then we'll rehab it.
Okay, awesome, man. Cool, man. Cool. So let's get into some of the creative financing. Let's get into some of the subject to type of deals. Like, what is a subject to type of deal, and what is that basically?
A subject to deal is when you are buying the property and the debt service is staying in the seller's name, but the deed's transfer. But then I am going to be responsible to pay those payments. And so a lot of times it works for sellers who don't have a lot of equity, may want to sell the property, but don't want to list it and deal with realtors and those types of things. And so we're able to, for us first, actually, what we do is we exhaust our cash offer. So if the cash offer is not going to work because their house is too pretty or they want too much for it and they have a mortgage on it, then we make them an offer to buy their house subject to. So for instance, we have a property where she just bought a house a couple of years ago. It's a condo. She bought it for 100. She owes 90 on it. She wants 100. It's worth probably a 125. So we can just give her 10 grand for a cash offer. We're probably at like 60, 70, 80 grand. So for her to get 100, we can give her 10 grand down, take over her mortgage of 90 and continue to make her payments. And as long as we can cash flow, then it's something that would make sense for us to move forward on.
And it would make sense for her as well, too, because she's getting the price that she wants. So here's one big mistake, Alex. I see a lot of people when investing in property, they kind of look at it like one dimensional. And this is kind of like even a fault at myself. Like whenever I've invested, I've kind of looked at it one way, like it's either the right price or not. But there are other things that affect whether the deal makes sense, like the terms, the rates, and all that. So talk to us about like whenever you make offers on a property, like I saw one time that you made like you gave the seller different scenarios. And you basically said, okay, if you want to sell it to us in cash, here's your offer. If you want to sell it to us financed, here's the offer. And if you want to sell it here's an offer. So tell us about that.
So that's typically when I first started, and with just me and my brother, we were doing it that way. We don't do it as much in this way. I do follow that procedure for commercial deals as well. But typically we make a couple different offers. So we like, and you have to know where the seller's at, you know, what they're looking for, and if they have a mortgage or they own it free and clear. So for instance, say they own the property free and clear, to make the numbers simple, say it's worth 100, they're asking 80. What I would do is say, hey, for your property, what I can do is I can give you 50 grand cash. Or number two, I can give you 70,000, and I'll give you 5 grand down, and the 65,000 I'll pay you in payments on a 20-year amortization at 3%. And then the next offer, I'd say, hey, I'll give you your offer, your price you want, 80,000, but I'll give you either 0 down or 10 grand down, 10%. And then I'll say, I'll give you the balance so say at 80,000, 10 grand down, the balance of 70,000, I'll pay you at $700 a month for 100 months. And as long as I cash flow and it makes sense for me, you know, he has options, and then he can say, well, I like this one better, or I like this one better. And then he can go from there, and maybe we can tweak it or whatnot. But it allows them to see where they get maybe a lower down payment, but they get interest, or they get a higher down payment and their price, and they get paid off earlier, but it's 0% interest. So for me, the principal pay down is great. Even if I don't cash flow, I would probably do that deal, because that home will be paid off in 8 years, and probably, you know, by the tenant renting it, and I'll have a free house in 8 years that I will cash flow greatly after that.
So essentially, the lower the rate, the higher the principal pay down. So essentially, if the interest rate is 0, your entire payment is basically going to the principal. So it's almost like an allowance, essentially, every single time.
Yeah, it can pay down much quicker. But even if you have a 2% rate and it's amortized over 30 years, it's all interest front loaded. So you're paying all that interest up front. So if you can get it at 0% interest, then that principal pay down is all going toward the first payment's all going towards the principal. So you can pay those down so quick. So it's really advantageous. And then if you sell those on a wraparound mortgage, where you put somebody else in the property and you sell the property to somebody else who wants to live in it, and you sell it to them for 8% interest, you will just crush it.
So tell me about that. So walk me through a scenario where maybe you tie up walk me through a scenario like that. What would that?
Okay, so one we just did 3 years ago. I bought a house in Rockledge, Florida, and bought it for 110 with 10 grand down. The seller kept the mortgage at 5.5% interest on the 100,000 on a 20-year or 15-year note. I forget. Let's say 20-year. No, payment was like eight something, and I had it rented. It was already had a tenant in there. She was renting it for 3 years. She just moved out. I cleaned the place up, did a little bit of work to it, and I sold it for 160,000. Sorry, 150,000.
Well, what did you put again?
I bought it for 110.
Okay.
10 grand down. I sold it for 150 with 10% down. So I essentially got my 15 grand back that I put into it for closing costs and everything. Got that back. And now they have a note to me at 135 at 8.5%. And my current balance is at like 85,000. So I have a 50K spread. But if 3 years from now go by, she's on a 30-year amortization, 8.5%. Her pay down for principal is like very little each month, where my pay down is almost like 40% of my payment. So my pay down is so much faster. So right now I have a spread of 50 grand, but 3-5 years from now, my spread is going to be like 65,000. So I'm going to always gain more equity than she is. My principal pays down faster than she is. So I'll be way ahead. The longer she holds it, I'll be much more farther ahead on my profit spread.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you include any prepayment penalties on a deal like that? Like basically like saying, hey, look, you can't refinance out of this deal for like 3 years or 5 years, or would you prefer to be cashed out of the deal at that time?
So on this one, because I already have a decent spread, I wouldn't worry about that, and I didn't include it on this other one we just closed and looking to sell on a wraparound.
Mm-hmm.
The spread's not as large, so
Mm-hmm.
I would probably do something like that on that one.
Yeah. Cool, man. So let me ask you this: like, what books or what has allowed you to like basically like what would you attribute a lot of your success to, man? Would you attribute it to mentorship? Would you attribute it to books? Would you attribute it? What would you attribute it to?
I would say definitely mentorships. You know, I'm in 3 mentorships right now, and they're high dollar mentorships, and I pay a lot of money to go to them. Probably in the last year, I spent like $80,000 in
Wow.
coaching and education and things like that. And so those are big helps. But podcasts, you know, if you're not digesting podcasts on any kind of asset class or wholesaling or real estate, like that's what you should be doing for sure. It's free education. Like I would say everything a mentorship has, like, is in a podcast. If you listen to it again and again and again, and listen to like all those courses they have, like whether it's self-storage, apartments, mobile home parks, they literally give away everything. You just got to listen to it and be attentive to it. But you get an advantage if you get to sit with them for 3 days and they hold your hand and you can ask questions. Just gives you a leg up on everything. So mentorships, coaching, and podcast definitely is what can excel anybody's path to success.
Would you be open to sharing what masterminds you're a part of?
Yeah, I'm in a boardroom mastermind with Kent Clothier. I am in self-storage investing with Scott Myers. And the one I was in previously was with Raph Vargas in 2019. He no longer is in real estate, but he is one who got me to do virtual wholesaling.
Perfect, man. Cool, man. Anything else that you think that we should share with the viewers, man?
Me and my partners, we also do coaching for wholesalers. We also have a cold call center where we help people scale their businesses. We have 21 affiliates, 10 new affiliates starting in December. We're already in 34 markets, cold calling for other investors. It's called Wamasu Leads, LAMASSU Leads on Instagram. You can follow us. So we have been able to scale many other people's businesses doing what we do. And that's how we get most of our leads for our wholesale business right now, is by cold calling and just marketing to different markets through our cold callers.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. And let me ask you this last question. This is more of a personal one. How do you go about like acquiring good talent or good people, like attracting good people, man, to work with you?
Yeah, so that's difficult. Like we're looking to hire right now as well, and it's always hard to find, really motivated, talented people. I think the ad copy a little bit is what gets you there, and trying to get in front of a lot of people. So I was struggling to when I was doing one-on-one calls with people who were approaching us for job interviews. It was hard to get people in here. They would be interested, and then they wouldn't show up for an interview, or they would just, fall through the cracks. But when we set up as a group Zoom interview, and everybody's on there, and people were asking questions, and they see, my partner was in South America, Colombia, where we have our cold call center. They saw what was going on there. They saw our office here, and everybody was in the group. It was kind of like feeding off each other. Like, I'm like, hey, we have 2 spots, and there's 40 people in the room. It gave a like fear of loss. Like, oh, I want that job. Yeah. So it allowed us to get some quality people in here. One who's over here, and he's doing really well. He's been here for like a month and a half. He's locked up like 21 deals or so in a month and a half.
That's awesome.
And so it's been good. And then it's not always about like finding, you can teach it. It's just getting somebody who's hungry, who's willing to learn. And, that's a good thing. And obviously fits with your culture and, what you're trying to, your goals.
That's awesome, brother. Book that you would recommend?
My favorite book is Think and Grow Rich. I think it's like, I feel like this whole business is it's mindset and like not only like speaking it into existence, but obviously you got to put the work into it. But every time, like we're like, we need like, I'm gonna get another deal. We're gonna get a self-storage deal. We're gonna get a self-storage deal. Like it just happens. We're like, oh man, we haven't been getting one, but we put it out there to the world and we increase our marketing. We're doing things. It just comes to fruition. Obviously, you got to do the work, but that is a big thing that a lot of people don't get. It is mindset and knowing. It starts with the mindset.
Yeah, you got to be able to see it first. Like if you look behind me, you'll probably see a vision board, and some of those things are crossed off already. And a lot of those things, like it was funny because when I bought my 25-unit apartment, I set a goal like 2 years before, and I honestly didn't think it was going to happen until it actually happened. And now that it's happened, it's like I purchased another one, like an 11-unit. And it's kind of now it's becoming easier after doing the first big one. But I attribute that as well, too, to like being able to like set the goal and visualize it and all that good stuff. So I want to say thank you, Alex, for being on the show, man. I honestly, you're somebody that I look up to. You're somebody that is doing big things, man. You're a big thinker. Where can people find you, like on social, man? Like if somebody wanted to like maybe stay in touch with you or get involved with your like mentorship, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can. My Instagram direct is Alex ALEX .the investor .Quezada. My last name QUE Z like zebra, A as an apple, D as in dog, A as an apple. So Alex .the investor Quezada, and you can find me there. We post a lot about what we're doing, our content, and deals closed and deals we're working on, and you can always reach out to me there. I do respond a lot and answer people's questions when I have the time, and you might catch me driving or waiting somewhere, and I'll give you an hour of my time. So I'm always out there to help people. Every time I've done that, they've always brought back plenty to me in return, whether it's deal flow or connections here and there. So I'm one to give my time and knowledge as much as I can.
Yeah, man, and you have a lot of knowledge to give. So appreciate it once again, man. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Maybe we could do a deal in the future, or maybe we can get involved in one way or another. But I appreciate it. To all the viewers, thank you so much for watching. And this is Alex Quezada. This is episode number 42. Thank you, guys.